right, when it comes to finding a good location to establish a cache, I like to look for prominent terrain features that are unmistakable. They're not going to move, and once I get there, I'm positive that that's the place that I'm at. But from that prominent feature, because it's so prominent, it could draw other people's attention. So I don't want to place my cache at the prominent feature. From my prominent feature, I want to have a primary and alternate route from that location to where my actual cache is. And while I may use, a precise azimuth and distance to get to that prominent feature, I go to a more general approach to actually finding the cache from that point, right? So while I'm comfortable marking the prominent location on a map if I needed to, or in a GPS if that's part of your plan, which it isn't part of mine, you can feel comfortable marking that prominent feature because the cache isn't really there. That's just a reference point for you to use that once you're close to the cache location. What I like to do is a very simple system. Once I get to the prominent location, I kind of change to cardinal directions at that point and very simple pace counts, like 50 to 100 meters between. And the reason I do that is because I don't need the precision, and this is an easy way to give me a primary and an alternate route from the prominent feature to my cache by using what's called the box method. For the box method, once I get to the prominent feature, I'll take a general cardinal direction for a given distance, and then I'll dogleg 90 degrees. And then I'll take another general cardinal direction, 90 degrees off of the first, and travel another 50 to 100 meters. Now that cardinal direction and that distance is known only to me. It's not marked down anywhere, it's not written anywhere, but it's a very simple process that I can remember easily when the time comes. And of course I share that with my family. Other members of my community are on the same type of system. So what that allows us to do is mark the prominent location, and that prominent location means nothing to anyone that may find the map or take the GPS. And it's a lot easier to remember if we're just using cardinal directions and 90-degree turns and equal pace counts. So with the box method, if I find my prominent feature and I was to travel north for 100 meters, once I get to the end of that, I can then turn east or west, it doesn't matter. I can turn east, and then that's that 90-degree turn from that baseline, and I can walk another 100 meters, and that dog leg will take me to the cache location. If for some reason I didn't feel like that route was passable or it wasn't a good route to use, I could use an alternate route, which is just the opposite order. So instead of going north for 100 and then east for 100, I can go east for 100 meters, then I could do a 90-degree turn and travel north for 100 meters, and I'll end up at the exact same location. So very easy to use, general directions, set pace count. My cache location has 2 routes to get to it, and I think that's the best way to go about reaching a cache and keeping them hidden and protecting your supplies. So with that said, once you do find a location, if it's possible to hide this in a way that you think it won't be found without digging, then you should do so. That's the easiest way to service it. It's the easiest way to recover it, and it doesn't take a lot of effort. For me, when I'm in placing these along my pre-planned routes, I'll take a shovel because that makes the digging easier, and there's a really good chance that a lot of times, I'm going to end up having to bury this cache. As far as the depth of the cache, it really depends on your area and your plan. For me, obviously you want to not bury it below the water line because then your cache is going to be soaked all the time. There's a good chance of it, if it has air in it, it's going to be pushed to the surface because it's going to float. If you're up in the Northeast where I'm at, if you are burying it above the frost line rather than below the frost line, there's a good chance of your container could crack, it could get pushed up to the surface. There's a lot of things that can happen. So for me, for my particular plan, when I'm in placing these or I'm just servicing them, I'm always going to have a shovel to recover them, to get them up and do what I need to do and rebury them. But a shovel is not part of my bug out, it's not part of my go bag, my bug out bag. Because in the event that I need to use these, I'm just going to use a simple digging stick to get what I need. But having said that, it's not worth the wait for me to carry it as part of my go bag for when it's real. But when I'm in placing these or servicing them, everything's still permissive. There's no reason for me to not have this shovel. I probably took a vehicle to pretty close to that location, then went on foot. I'm not carrying it for a long distance. And because I service these, you know, at least once a year, I go check on everything, check on the contents. I'm not going to bury it all that deep because I'm not worried about environmental factors pushing that to the surface as much, because I'm checking it and kind of re-emplacing it at least once a year. So I'll only dig, you know, 8 to 12 inches deep so that it's easy for me to get to if I need to with just a digging stick, and I don't need any particular tools for that. So for me, you know, 8 to 12 inches deep is fine. I don't worry about the water line where I'm at. I'm not worried about the frost line where I'm at, but that may be something that you need to consider. Another thing I'll say is, you know, there is a school of thought to where you bury a cache such as this, you bury it vertically rather than horizontally. And, you know, the thought process behind that being that if you bury it vertically, there's less of a signature if someone were to come through with, say, a metal detector looking for your cache. It would be more difficult for them to find with a 4 to 5 inch diameter signature versus the signature that would be put off if it was horizontal. And there is some merit to that depending on, you know, where you're placing your cache. But for me, I just prefer to emplace my caches in a place where I would never expect someone to come through with a metal detector. I like to put them in really secluded, not high traffic areas, but that may be something that you need to consider for your plan. But for me, I just put them in horizontally because it's easier to dig that than it is to dig what I would need to cover this. So that's how I do it.